listeners, as you can hear right now, we are in the Moon Copter flying into Grant Mansion. With me, I have the effervescence, the powerful, the Chad with me. Hello, Chad.
Hello.
And with me, of course, as always, is the one and only Reynaldo, the High Priest, who's this time. Hello, Ray.
Hey, how you going, Connor? How you going, Chad? How are you both?
Bloody remarkable, because we're going to put you in the hot seat, and we're going to go through your Isla Ra, or this time, your Isla Ray. So, friendship, just bring us on down through the pool, we'll get right to it.
Alright, boys, take a seat on these lovely couch. Get ourselves a nice cup of tea from this lovely butler. Well, I mean, I'm drinking tea. What can I say? I'm a sober man. You guys might want something a bit heavier.
I tell you, it's quite comfy and quite different sitting on the other side of the couch here, Connor. Being interviewed, but there's something quite disarming about Grant Mansion.
It's just that lovely fire blazing in the corner. So yeah, boys, how we doing? Start off with you, Chad, before we roast Ray into Oblivion. How are you?
Or roasting him into hell by the sounds of it. But I'm doing fine. I got a bit of a cold. Just finished moving into the new place. All that jazz.
Oh, congratulations.
Thanks.
Was it like as any move? Was it highly stressful, highly exhausting?
No, it was crazy exhausting on all fronts. It was bad.
Bloody hell.
We got tons done right before a snowstorm dropped on us.
Oh, wow.
Man. Oh, of course. Yeah, I forget it's snowing over there, or it's blazing hot over here.
Yeah, we have dangerous animals here. You guys have, like, snowstorms to contend with. Yeah, but did you lose anything, or did you everything accounted for? Nothing broken? No broken crockery?
Nah, the only thing that really broke was, I think it was one of our drinking glasses.
Oh,
just
no.
like regular glasses.
Oh, okay. Okay. No sentimental value.
Nah.
What are you drinking, by the way, Chad? So this is the interviewer in me. I'm just, what do you got there?
Giant mug full of cold black coffee.
Oh, yeah. Lovely.
Cold, huh?
Cold.
That's great. And Connie, you got some tea.
Got some tea.
See. Samuel's been very kind enough to make me a milkshake.
Oh.
It's fantastic.
Someone's really relaxing in the seat.
That's it. Well, you know, when in Rome, enjoy it while you can, eh? So, it's good. Malt.
I should say, actually, everyone, if you're tuning in for the first time to one of these Isla Ra's, what we do, we pick one of the lovely people who've contributed to Into the Night, whether it's in our community or one of the people on the show. We put them in a hot seat. We talk about how they got into comics, all the history with comics, Moon Knight, and then we discuss 4 of their favourite single issues to give you kind of a broader view of the people you're listening to and interacting with.
Yeah.
This time we got Ray.
Yeah, and look, I must say, and a big shout out to all the past Isla Ra guests. I tell you, guys, it has been so illuminating hearing and going through some of their comics. Like, one of the great things about this, I think, is that we all share, different backgrounds, different histories, there've been comics that I would never have picked up that I've have since read because of the Isla Ra guests. So I'm just humbly hoping that the choices I've made tonight might open some doors for others.
Hell yeah. Well, in that case, we've got everyone seated. And before these drinks go away too fast, we should crack into it. So the first question, the big question we asked the person in the hot seat, Ray, how did you get into comics?
Yes. Look, Connor, you probably know this well enough. But yeah, I mean, comics were, I don't know, I always was kind of into it. I guess when I was little, I've got 2 older sisters, and my parents, were quite willing for us to, watch some TV and follow stuff here and there. So I remember just being very young, and we had costumes, superhero costumes like Superman, Spider-Man. The Incredible Hulk was my favourite back then, and we actually even had a spider buggy. I think they actually had a little kids thing. It was like a miniature one of those ones with the pedals, so you can actually wheel it around. That was really cool. So it kind of, I guess that was the earliest kind of memory, and that kind of led to, I guess, more TV, like the 70s, 80s Incredible Hulk with Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno. As a family, I remember us watching that, and just being a young, bright-eyed little fella, it just really opened the door to, I guess, your imagination. Like, I mean, I guess comics and all that, what it does tap into with a lot of people are their imaginations, and I found it very nurturing for that. So back then I still wasn't collecting any comics, but I was into the shows, and then I guess I went to school and started creating some characters myself. I remember when I was 9 years old, creating a little booklet. It was almost like a little Marvel Universe handbook. So I had I think about 10 characters. A lot of them actually were influenced by Astro Boy. I used to watch Astro Boy a lot. Yeah.
Nice.
So you guys had watched the original series, yeah?
Yeah.
When I was a kid.
Do you remember much of it? Like, the most memorable one for me was is it the greatest robot in the world? It had Bruton.
Oh yeah.
There was a two-parter. I think it was the last of the season or whatever. That absolutely floored me, and that really, I think that instigated a lot. So for listeners who don't know, Astro Boy, the greatest robot in the world, Astro Boy is up against this mighty robot called Bruton, massive horns on his head, and Bruton is going around the world killing all these seemingly invincible robots out there. There's I can't remember the guy's name. He's like a wrestler robot. He takes on him. He kills him. There's actually, I think it's Fotar, I think is his name. He's a robot in Australia, in the Outback, and he relies on the sun. He dispatches him. And anyway, he goes through them all, and it's, at the end of the day, Bruton versus Astro Boy. And then, I can't remember who, someone else makes another robot stronger than them all. Anyway, it was a fantastic... do you guys remember that at all? Or, yeah?
Yeah, you know what you need to read, man?
Yeah.
I don't know your Astro Boy. Have you ever read the manga Pluto?
No.
Oh my god, so what it was in 2003, a legendary manga writer, Naoki Urasara, he does a lot of detective and supernatural stuff. What he did was he took the greatest robot on Earth story arc and turned it into a much more mature, serious 8-volume detective story.
Oh,
following
wow.
the role of the robot detective, is it Gescheit?
Right.
And it's from his perspective, seeing all these, dealing with, the big Mr. Horns and all that, and Pluto. And...
Oh, man. So, yeah, I do remember now. It's all coming back to me now. So there was a robot that was... Because I remember there was a robot butler that had all these arms and was actually quite... And there was... I think there was a robot detective, right? Or robot police. Yeah. Okay, it's based on him. Wow. That's cool.
So this manga is, was written in 2003, so, many years after, but, it's a very serious spin on the story from his perspective. You got to check it out.
Awesome. I definitely will. So, yeah, I mean, those characters, they just, that and cartoons like G-Force. I used to watch the old Marvel cartoons, like the really old ones, like, they're almost like comic cutout. Motion comic ones. Yeah, I used to watch the Iron Man, the Incredible Hulk, that was all Spider-Man, that was all fantastic. So all that kind of led to creating my own characters and stuff, and then I remember on a trip to the US, like the big family trip we had, going to one of the newsagents, and I saw, I don't know the issue number, I saw Captain America, and it had him falling out of a skyscraper, I think against the Armadillo, so this was in the mid-80s. And I think I asked my mum if I could get it for the plane trip, and that was the first comic I got, and that was just, I was sold after that. So yeah, I mean, I guess a lot of loonies come in through video games and such. For me, it was TV. Basically, I think basically TV is a big part of it. So, fortunate enough to watch a lot of TV when I was young.
I guess then that was like the very first introduction. How long after that did it take you to find Moon Knight?
Moon Knight was great. He came along in a whole batch and wave of comic books that I started collecting in the early 90s. So I kind of went a bit crazy around that time, starting to get a bit more pocket money and stuff. I discovered Comic Kingdom was the very first LCS I went to. It's in Sydney. It's still there, and look, nowhere near as good as King's. I used to go to King's as well. King's used to be located somewhere else in the city. It used to be downstairs at the bottom of this high-rise building. Was there... so anyway, the 90s, I don't know, kind of... Rick Ball, obviously, is a big proponent and a lover of the 90s, and for me, it was a purple patch, basically because it had a lot of nostalgia associated with it. Like, looking back now, everything looks really kind of... Looking back, it just looks really... a really fun time. So anyway, comics were huge back then. It's nothing like it was... like it is now, really. You had the likes of Jim Lee, Eric Larson, Todd McFarlane all coming up. So comics were just like selling like hotcakes. And people, I remember in high school, that weren't even usually associated with collecting comics were collecting comics. And it was really a really fun time to kind of grow up in. So anyway, with all these titles, I think I tried to collect everything, and a lot of it was Marvel. So the big ones were obviously The Incredible Hulk because of the TV show. That was one of my favourites. Amazing Spider-Man, loved his Amazing Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man, Web of Spider-Man. He had, like today, he has a lot of titles. I collected the Avengers. The big ones were obviously the X-Men, Wolverine and Ghost Rider were huge back in the 90s. But in between all that, there was a little book which kind of intrigued me called Mark Spector Moon Knight, and so I picked it up, and for me he was so different from everything else. Like everything was for him was very much pared back. Even like from memory, I could be wrong, but the comic, the page stock seemed slightly different, or the inking, I don't know. It just seemed slightly more exotic than the other mainstream titles. So yeah, I started collecting that around the trial of Mark Spector. So that was issue. We covered this last week, around issue 15, and from there I just collected on to. I didn't go to the end actually. As I came towards the end of high school and stuff, and hormones and growing up, comics actually dropped out a bit. I got really into obviously other stuff, and music is still a big part of my life as well. So dropped out of that. But yeah, I came back. I only came back recently, about 2014, let's say.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I had a big... So, left high school, went to uni, did work for a long time, and then, then came back to it. Basically from just visiting and seeing offhand a lot of trades in the library, thought I'd give that a go. And then you get all these movies coming out and... TV series, and yeah, it was from that. But yeah, Moon Knight was definitely Mark Spector was my first introduction, and then obviously Connor as well. That Lemire run, and the Warren Ellis run as well beforehand.
Oh yeah, you would have been right on. That was 2014. Wasn't
yes,
it?
Yeah, it really got me back into it. So that was like. This is very different Moon Knight from the Mark Spector I remembered. Yeah, but then that was followed up by Lemire, and it was like, whoa, with Greg Smallwood. It's like, whoa, this is just top stuff. We've got to do a podcast. So, so that's how I got into it. So it's that's the journey to Moon Knight. And obviously he's one of the tops now, but I do love my street levels. Yeah, I mean, we'll get into it with the comics. I think from as I was growing up, such a vast array of comics, it's hard to relinquish a lot of them. But I think now, looking at myself now, I think street level's probably where I'm most comfortable and happy with.
Yeah, I think street level is a big thing for me getting back into it. You know, you kind of had a big renaissance of that as well recently. Plus, I think out of all of them, the older street level comics are probably the ones that hold up the most.
Yeah, they do. I mean, I still enjoy, for all its quirks and idiosyncrasies, I still enjoy the 90s, like Punisher. That was a funny time, you know. That was great because it had Micro in it.
Right.
Yeah, and this was before the Garth Ennis Punisher Max thing, so things were, you know,
Jet skis and all that.
yeah, jet skis. There was still senseless killing and violence, but nothing like graphic or really dark. It was kind of similar to, you know, those 80s and 90s action films. Like Die Hard or Commando. It's like, well, you know, what are we going to do? Oh, just shoot them first. We'll ask questions later. Those were the sorts of comics that Punisher was kind of doing. But I remember there was a big one as well where he had massive cosmetic surgery and he turned...
Oh no! I
yeah,
know what this.
Yeah, you know that one, Chad. yeah. He revealed, and you kind of think, oh, is it like a Joker moment? And he's black. And for a while, yeah, exactly. For a while, Punisher, there was a short run where he was black.
What on earth?
It is such a funny time. Yeah, I mean, Chad, you did you have much dealings in the 90s as well, or have you plundered the 90s vaults?
I actually have not.
Oh.
I've pretty much gotten out of the 90s and tried to not look back. I know it's heresy to some people, but
it's such sorry.
It's nice in its own way, but you know, time and place.
I think so. Yeah, definitely time and place. It's such a wacky time that, like, you know, we joke about it kind of with the ponytails and the pouches and the no feet and all that, but it was extremes, right? You had these awesome artists, right? And you had the caliber of look, I still find them good. Nowadays they're maybe a bit hot and cold, but you have your Chris Claremonts, your Peter Davids, you know, your Fabian Nicieses, really, really cool writers. But, you know, artists were like the rock stars back then. And it's so funny now, like the writers have taken a front seat to everything, which is nothing wrong with that. But it just shows that the 90s was such a different time.
So what are some of your other favourite characters from that era then? So talking street level, talking Punisher.
Yeah, I mean, Moon Knight, was great. I followed a little bit of Nomad, which was basically, I can't even remember now if it was Bucky Barnes, but it was a Nomad that had a little baby strapped to his back. That was a whole premise. Yeah, was that Bucky? No.
No, that wasn't Bucky. That was the Captain America from the Vietnam War.
Oh, okay.
I forgot his name.
Right.
But it was him, when he came back, he had his little crisis of conscience.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And he rescued the baby from a drug-addled home.
Wow, right.
And, yeah.
Yeah, and one of those characters ended up dying in Brubaker's run or something.
Oh, okay. I see. I love how they bring back these characters that, you know, are just featured fleetingly, like in other eras. So Nomad was great. I liked... actually, he's in the Deadpool. He was in the Mercs for Hire or whatever. Terra Inc. Did you guys know much about him? Or do you know him?
No. Not at all.
Oh, okay, he's awesome. He's a horror kind of guy, and he had a little bit of a popularity streak in the 90s. He had a limited series as well, but he what's the deal? He's very hungry. He eats body parts, or he actually attaches body parts to himself, and he gains the memories and whatever skill, you know, that person had. So he's quite a grisly character, but he's kind of like a detective as well. So you know, he was pretty fun. Sleepwalker, which we've seen recently in Infinity Wars, was a really nice character back in the day there. A few Silver Sable. She had and the Wild Pack. She had a series which I followed, which is not street level, but she's kind of espionage. So there were a lot of really good ones. But like Moon Knight was a big one with Daredevil. Daredevil, is one of my absolute fave characters. So it's always been Daredevil, Moon Knight, and say the Punisher for me with the big street levels.
All right. Well, I guess you mentioned as well, as we always like to ask people. We're going to talk about getting into Moon Knight, talking in comics. What are some of the other things you got into then? We got Rick Bull talking about his merch and his figures and his all his video games. What about you? What keeps you busy outside of comics?
Okay. Well, yeah. I guess it would be music. That as I mentioned was a big one of the big drivers that kind of pulled me away from comics. I know it's might sound really weird, but the older I get, the more sense it makes. I'm a massive classical music fan. So I treated the composers like I treat comic book titles. I've researched them. I've collected complete works for some of my favourite composers. I've tried to educate myself to the point where you can turn on a classical music radio station and I can pick that piece. I like to. Nerdy. Yeah, it is. I like to impress Eve with that. So that and piano playing, because I'm a teacher as well. Finished all my grades. I love playing the piano. I kind of treated that as same obsession, and I find myself going back towards comic books again. It's really cool. I actually once do you remember Chad? Again, I don't know if you have a lot of comics actually associated particular soundtracks to their issues. Where they got you to, they suggested that you should, listen to this while you read the issue. I actually wrote into Marvel, to Agent M. It was on This Week in Marvel, that's their podcast, and I was suggesting, would Marvel be amenable to doing that again? Because I reckon that's a great, well, for me, a very selfish reason. Two good loves, two of my loves, music and comics. I'd love to see them marry together. A really good idea, but he... I can't...
Told you to bugger off?
No, there's some rights issues and all that like that. Agent M said, Ryan Penagos had said he wanted that back as well, and he'd been trying to do it, but there are a couple of hoops that you have to go through in order to do it. So it's not as easy as it sounds. But I'd say music would be the big thing. But I'm not only just into classical. I like all sorts of music.
All right. So I think, we started this podcast on a classical piece for Moon Knight.
Yeah.
What soundtracks would you give to, I don't know, say Daredevil or Mad Rocks or something crazy like that?
Oh yeah. Oh, see, it's so hard with Daredevil because I can't help but be influenced from the Netflix show, because I think the soundtrack from that is absolutely brilliant. That opening credit scene, are you guys the same? You know how there's a skip intro thing?
Oh, never skip it.
Never. No, you gotta listen to it build up again. Okay, so classical. I would. Oh man. I know a lot of the modern composers. I'd say Philip Glass, maybe, for Daredevil. Madrox would be something a bit more quirky. So you'd go for...
Pixies.
Sorry?
Pixies.
Pixies? Probably. Yeah, the Pixies actually be cool. Actually, if we're not talking just about classical, yeah, for sure. Go for something... like that. Namor, I don't know. Chad, what do you reckon? Help me out here. He's an... Sorry?
Namor, he's more of like a thinker. He has a lot of levels that he'd be on.
But he'd be more regal as well, right? The king of Atlantis.
That really dramatic backing.
And a bit arrogant. So, that'll be a hard one to place. Man,
Could be a lot of like crystal tones or something.
Yeah, I think massive sweeping orchestrals as well. Moon Knight would be more noir, I reckon, like a seedy jazzy kind of,
Cowboy Bebop.
Cowboy Bebop. Yeah, why not? Punisher would be just a marching band, wouldn't he? something military. I don't know.
Lots of percussion.
Lots of percussion, yeah, and lots of cannons going off. Would be Tchaikovsky's 1812. There you go. That'll be good. I'd love to actually associate. Maybe we should, because I know there are a lot of music fans in the ITK community, Connor. Maybe we can post something up and we'll posit it to them, like what music would you associate this and this character? So I was just off the top of my head, like my favourite characters. So obviously Daredevil, Namor, Submariner, Madrox. Hercules. I don't know. What do you reckon about Hercules? That would be more kind of classical, wouldn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Kind of be like sweeping God's music. Yeah, something fun as well, because, it's kind of like this man stuck out of time. He's hanging out with all the cool kids.
Yeah, true. He's drunk as well, so maybe some drunken, I don't know, maybe a sea shanty. Yeah, sorry.
No. What were you going to say?
No, that was it. I was just saying, enough of Hercules.
I was just gonna ask you then, because I know you're just starting to develop a little range of figures.
Yeah, I am actually looking forward to the Hercules Marvel Legends. The latest one coming out this year looks bloody awesome. I have just started a collection. I have Jessica Drew, Spider-Woman, in her new costume. Very cool, because that's a bit of a tip of the hat to Dennis Hopeless, one of my favourite runs, and can I mention was very close as an honourable mention in my top 4 books. Have Black Knight I just got recently. I love Dane Whitman's aesthetic and just the idea of the Frank Thierry run just recently, I think in 2013 or 14. I think it was going in a really good direction, and it was a real shame that they finished it after 6 issues, but they had a bit of a Game of Thrones vibe. Really kind of, really kind of cool medieval slash weird world mix. I've got Moon Knight, of course. Have Namor, just in his togs, because he's got a few of different varieties. But I thought I'd just get the classic one. I've got Ant-Man. I do love Ant-Man as well. And I've got Multiple Man again, and I'm hoping to get a couple more of him to build an army. So really
2 Multiple Man.
Only 2 at the moment, yeah. But
I remember one point you were talking about 4 of them.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping to get another 4 at least. 10 or something. I'm hoping to get 10. And then I can just inundate Finn, who's my son, by the way. Loony listeners, when he grows up, he's old enough, I can just chuck them all at him and go, have at thee, Finn. And he'll go, why did you get 12 of these figures? I say, I don't know. He's Multiple Man. No, actually, I was thinking of doing mind games with him. I was thinking of, for my little son, because, you got to start early. And I was thinking of, just giving him the one, and then, the next day or the next week, just having another one pop up next to it. And just gradually over the month. So after a couple of months, he's going, "What's happening here?" I go, "I don't know." Thinking it's growing. So yeah, a lot of fun can be had with those figures. You're a big collector as well, Connor, aren't you? You've got a bit of an impressive collection.
Oh, I've only actually got 1 Marvel Legends figure, and then a couple of pops, and then I don't know, 70 Transformers. That's what I really collect. Yeah,
but the Transformers though, so you've got because there's different models, right? Because again, back in the day, I had it wasn't even Starscream. It was like a 3rd tier fighter jet villain. Are they the Mattel ones that you've got, or are
Hasbro?
They...
Yeah,
Hasbro.
Yeah, all sorts of different. All the bloody different shows and games. They all have their own set of figures and the movies. And
Awesome. Are they all through Hasbro, or?
yeah, Hasbro and Takara have owned them since the beginning.
Okay, cool. And Chad, do you have any as well, or it's not your thing?
I got nothing.
Okay, yeah, no, I mean, I've only literally
Too busy buying expensive, nice microphones.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what that is.
Yeah. Which, incidentally, Chad, you are sounding very good indeed, sir, tonight.
Good. I was worried about that.
No, it's sounding crystal clear. So a few figures. I've seen a few other good figures as well, Connor. That's coming out this year. Nightcrawler in particular, and Forge. I'm a big fan of Forge, because Forge is kind of like your street level mutant, right? He's not really impressive. His skill, like he intuitively, like he's a genius, and I'm doing air quotes. But if you read his Marvel Universe thing, all of it's intuitive. So even sometimes when he thinks, okay, you know his mutant ability, don't you, Connor?
I thought it was just building shit real quick.
Yeah.
Am I thinking of the wrong Forge?
No, that's Forge. So Forge, his mutant ability is to be able to think of anything, and he can actually build and create anything. So basically, think of an invention or whatever, he can build it. But the thing is, apparently the difference between him and, say, your Reed Richards or your Moon Girl or Amadeus Cho is that it's all intuitive. So he doesn't necessarily understand or know why he's building it, like the way he's building it. It just happens. It's a very weird mutant power. Chris Claremont created him, but I like it because he's, other than that, he's just a normal dude who has a bit of magic as well, and a bionic leg. Oh. But other than that, he's normal.
Just these pretty apex level advancements.
Yeah, apart
nothing
from that,
big.
No. And he has a ponytail, so he's from the 90s. Yeah, but good figures coming out. Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, I think we've grilled you enough. I think we have 4 particular comics we want to cover. And what we do here in our Isla Ra, or our Isla Ra now, is we get ready to pick 4 of his favourite single issues, and we cover 2 quickly and then go deep in depth on 2 of them. So he's given us Mark Spector Moon Knight 25, Harbinger 5, that's from the 2012 reboot, Kenny X-Men 251, and then is it Daredevil 67?
Yes. Yeah, so can I, just a little disclaimer, and maybe explain why I picked those 4.
Oh, yes, we've been teasing this for a while.
Yeah, so there is as I mentioned to Connor and Chad before, there's a little method to my madness. So, look, I didn't realise, obviously, I had a bit of tongue-in-cheek when I asked guests to come on and pick their top 4, and they'd always say, oh, it's so hard, it's so difficult, it's going to take me forever, I've got a huge list. And I didn't realise how hard it was until, you actually do it as well. So it is very hard because there are so many single issues that could be deemed worthy for it, but you have to just let things go. So my method in coming into it, so I picked 4, and I've picked 4 because the 4, each of them in a different way, kind of triggers a memory or a kind of feeling that I get when I read it, and that encapsulates a certain era for me. So I thought, by doing that, then, like, for instance, if I pick the Harbinger one, which is number 5, a fantastic issue, right? But if I pick that one, it gave me that same feeling that I had when I read through, say, the Armor Hunters and the Harbinger Wars and Bloodshot and Ninjak and Exo Manowar. So it's a representation of those sorts of comics. And similar could be said for the other 3. So Mark Spector Moon Knight is a 90s comic for me, and it's Moon Knight, obviously I think is great. It has Ghost Rider as a guest, Mark Bagley art. Mark Bagley is one of the, he's such a great artist, such a respected artist. So that's why I chose Moon Knight. Like, it was in the 90s, has Moon Knight, and sneakily has Ghost Rider in there as well. Daredevil, I picked the Bendis run because, my God, I'm rereading it now, and how good is the Bendis Daredevil run? It is friggin' good, and I think it was one of the big reasons that got me back into comics, like, recently as well. So that kind of kick-started me looking into it. I think I bumped into something in the library, started reading it, and I could not put it down. I went through the Bendis, the Brubaker run, all that. So for me, that the Daredevil issue is a reminder of me of re-entering comics and that feeling, that joy that I got, I guess, of being reintroduced into the world of comics. And the last one was X-Men 251. That was in the late 80s, 89, I believe. So that one, and I told you as well, Connor, just before, a little bit before, this is one of the comics that every time I rack my brain as to what is the most memorable comic for me, I always come back to this one. I don't know why, it just sticks in my mind. Mark Silvestri art, Wolverine. I was a massive Wolverine fan in the 90s. Look, who wasn't? He was a big figure back then. And it had him at his absolute low. It has also the introduction to Jubilee, which is, she's turned into her own great character. Yeah, that's Jubilee in the issue. So this was the genesis of them being almost, her being the sidekick to Wolverine. So they met in the Outback, and it kind of started around this time, around 250, 251. But out of all the four, I'd say 251, this issue, I picked it because it just jumps out in my mind every single time. So I could not ignore it. I wanted to also say, massive big shout. I was so cut that I could not include any Peter David X Factor run. That's a massive, I love that sort of stuff. Garth Ennis, Punisher Max. Man, there was so many good issues there as well. Like I said, Spider-Woman, Dennis Hopeless, the Jeff Lemire runs, and of Moon Knight and Houston, all that I could have chosen. Rick Ball chose issue 13 of Houston's Moon Knight. I would have chosen that as well as Moon Knight number 5 by Warren Ellis, but we've covered that as well, so I thought I'd give that a miss, but they were obviously up there as well. But anyway, that was the idea of picking these in my long rant.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I think if I'm hearing some murmurs from Mark and Marlene, so I think we need to get moving before some squeaky velvet happens. So I think we're KHONSHU. I think we're in a much needed teleportation to a certain diner.
Awesome.
Quick bite to eat to get this thing started.
Let's do it.
Hi, this is Chris.
And this is Brian.
And we are the hosts of Inner Demons, the Ghost Rider podcast.
And you can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, and other podcast apps for all your Ghost Rider needs.
Ride on.
Alright, boys, take a seat. Yep, Gena over here.
Hi, Gena, how are you? Yes, it's good. Chad, you've been to Gena's Diner before?
A couple times, yeah.
You're no stranger to coffee, no doubt.
Nah.
I
think I'll take another.
Take another, yeah?
I'm going to follow in his footsteps and also take a nice hot black coffee.
Yeah, Gena, I'll have an iced coffee, thanks. Just to be different.
All right, coming right up. Well, while we're waiting for those, shall we start on the? Which one did you want to start on out of the quickies?
Yeah, look, let's start with Moon Knight 25. A really cool run. So this was off the Mark Spector, and again, there could have been so many from the Mark Spector run to choose from. There's a Scarlet Redemption. There's the earlier Chuck Dixon stuff, which I really like. There was the stuff around Robin, which we covered previously last episode, Connor, which was up there as well. But I chose this one because it's a nice one-shot and written by Howard Mackie, so he's not your typical Moon Knight writer. He's actually more of a Ghost Rider writer.
Nice.
But yeah, it's really cool. So basically, so in a nutshell, in this one, Moon Knight and Ghost Rider, they kind of team up against what is the cult of Khonshu, and they're kind of like terrorists, and they seem to be appearing randomly terrorizing New York City. But it turns out that they're under the leadership of one really 90s villain. She's called Plasma. She looks very, very 90s. She's got blue like visor, very kind of scantily clad. But she's a mutant, and she, surprise, surprise, can shoot plasma. I was about to say magma. But anyway, so they kind of battle her. And that's basically, it turns out she wants to basically promote the cult of Khonshu and topple all the major, I guess, governments. That was her idea, but she meets a grisly end in the train, in the subway. And Moon Knight and Ghost Rider, Moon Knight has a little moment to self-reflect on, is he good? Like, because he was a mercenary. He meets up with an ex-merc as well, and Ghost Rider, just dishes out vengeance, and they seem to team up pretty well. But that's basically it. It's called Ghosts of the Past. And written by Howard Mackie, Mark Bagley, and Tom Palmer on inks. It was a pretty interesting issue. What did you make of it, Connor? Like, this is another Mark Spector Moon Knight issue that you are now introduced to.
Yeah, well, this is pretty jarring to me. Not in how it was written, but I was introduced to, so I've only read those few pieces of Mark Spector Moon Knight from the last issue, and this is my first issue of 90s Ghost Rider as well.
Ah, lovely.
So just all the things happening. I like the idea of the cult of Khonshu, and this Plasma character who died seemed kind of cool. And I do kind of want to check out the rest of them now, but yeah, I think the biggest takeaway here is Ghost Rider is just mean and staring.
Yeah, I think the good thing for this is that Howard Mackie, like he was the Ghost Rider of the 90s of the title, so he has a good grasp of the character, and obviously it makes sense that he wanted to introduce a character that he's been writing. So I think Ghost Rider is portrayed really well here. I think it's such a weird thing. Like, these are both spirits or avatars of vengeance, and I think this is the only time they've ever teamed up. And I've been talking with Brian from Inner Demons, the Ghost Rider podcast, and we've been trying to get Marvel. I've been harassing CB Cebulski with doing a Moon Knight Ghost Rider team up, because they just seem so well matched. But yeah, this is the only team up that I'm aware of. And it's very 90s. Like, there are a lot of trench coats. The violence is actually, when you say jarring, kind of, I immediately thought of there's a lot of graphic violence here that may make like a Max series these days. Like, there's a guy that gets shot by plasma. Did you see that? One of the cult of oh no, sorry, he detonates himself, and you see his
plasma just burns a guy's head off too.
Yeah, and plasma decapitates a guy. So there's stuff now that you wouldn't see in today's comics as well. For me, it's very 90s, so that's why, I guess that's why I picked it, because it just reminds me of that time. But yeah, it's pretty good. Chad, are you a fan of Mark Bagley, or have you read much of Howard Mackie?
It's entirely possible I could have, and I mean, I was probably like 3 years old when this came out.
Yeah. Well, let's hope you don't see any decapitated bodies when you're 3. Yeah. Look, it's also good as well because, we've discussed as well at length that Mark Spector, Moon Knight, it had one agenda, and that was to not worry about the personalities and to just focus on Mark Spector, that persona, and for it to be a bit of a Dark Knight take, But this issue I like because in it, as I mentioned, Mark comes across one of his ex-colleagues. He's a mercenary. He's turned into he's still a mercenary. And he works for the cult of KHONSHU. And anyway, Mark has a tussle with him. I can't remember his name. It's like Sword or something. He's got a really dodgy name. Let me just have a quick look. I can't remember. Anyway, so Mark kills him in conflict. And that actually leads him to question himself, like why he's doing what he's doing as an avatar of vengeance, and is that a good thing? Is he a good person? These sorts of these sorts of things that run even through to the Bemis run, which is quite essential for Moon Knight.
Yeah, this sort of follows on from what I liked about the trial of Mark Spector as well, and I do kind of want to follow on from here because I really like this idea of Mark doubting himself and his role as the Avatar of Vengeance. So, yeah, exactly. And I think with what they have to play with, it being him stripped of his Jake Lockley and Stephen Grant persona, it's good to focus on that. Like, otherwise, he's just going to be a vigilante, with gadgets just going around the street, solving crime and fighting, and there's a lot more to him than that. So, so I like that inclusion there. But that was that's a Moon Knight issue. It's I had to. This was really close. It was either a Moon Knight issue, and I could not put a Moon Knight issue in my top 4. But knocking on the door was the Peter David X Factor run. It would have been issue 74 or 75, which was the introduction of the new team, and it was a multiple man centric story, or the Peter David mid 2000s Madrox run, an X Factor run, one of those issues. That was very close to if not Moon Knight, it would have been one of those. But that's it in a nutshell. All right. Well, I guess Chad, anything you want to add?
Let's see. I think it should be kind of important to note that it was Danny Ketch as Ghost Rider.
True. Danny Ketch was in the 90s, Connor. Danny Ketch was the Ghost Rider back then. In the early 90s, actually, Johnny Blaze gets reintroduced. Like, he'd been missing for years, and it had been Danny Ketch. And at this point, I believe they hadn't come up with the idea that Danny Ketch was related to Johnny Blaze, because they're brothers, I do believe.
Yep.
But I think this time, I mean, when I was reading Ghost Rider during this time as well, there's no mention that they were brothers. Not until, I think at least, was it Midnight Suns? I'm not sure if that was mentioned there, but Midnight Suns heralded the return of Johnny Blaze, and that was a huge arc, around the 90s. But another interesting thing about Ghost Rider, and I think this was brought up by the guys at Inner Demons, there is a weird bit here where Plasma totally annihilates Ghost Rider, and he's utterly gone, right? And this shows how powerful Ghost Rider is, but it also kind of like is, he's really, really powerful. He's literally blown up into nothing, and he's just a smouldering mess, and Moon Knight thinks that he's gone and dead, but then he kind of reanimates himself out of nothing. So, I don't know, take of that what you will, but, he's literally immortal.
And, like, Plasma, if I'm not mistaken, isn't Danny Ketch, like, one of the first Ghost Riders to start actually burning plasma as well as just fire?
Oh, right. Yeah. I mean, he had also that signature... I think that was just Danny Ketch. Oh, man, we should really ask the Ghost Rider guys. Danny Ketch had the little button on the motorbike, which turned him into Ghost Rider. But, he had a lot of these funky powers. Yeah, Chad, I think they started exploring that But I believe from what the guys had said, they've never ever seen him reanimate himself from nothing again. So, it's a pretty powerful thing to do. But yeah, he's so it was interesting to see. I mean, Ghost Rider was just as, I found him just as cool as Moon Knight back in the 90s.
Yeah, well, if you guys are listening, your Vengeance boys want to fill us in on what we're missing, I know literally nothing about Ghost Rider. I've read one run, and that's the Jason Aaron one.
Yeah, did you like that? That was a good run.
I loved it.
Yeah, really good, really good. It really expanded his lore. And from what I understand, Daniel Way started introducing the angels and stuff and heaven. The Ghost Rider guys, they reckon Daniel Way, you either love some of his stories really good or you totally hate them. Like, he's really hit
I
and
didn't
miss.
need that admittedly. I might now that I've got MU again. But...
Yeah.
Well, how about we talk some Harbinger? Valiant's 2012 reboot.
Yeah, so Harbinger, this is a weird one because I don't know, kind of you and Rebecca know as well. We're all big Valiant fans. I burnt through the whole 2012 onwards, every single issue of Valiant, because they're all so good. There's no, like, Chad, I don't know if you read Valiant or not, but it is no exaggeration when someone asks what is the best title, you kind of always go, oh, they're all pretty good, because they are. They're all really good. And I chose this one, as I mentioned before, because it kind of triggers a particular feeling I had when I started reading the 2012 runs. And this is, issue 5 is really cool. So, Harbinger, for those who don't know, they're basically about psiots, which are equivalents to mutants in the Valiant universe. And anyway, this to me had taking back. It takes a little bit from X-Men and mutants, but also takes a bit from Akira. I think I could not help but think of Tetsuyo, in this first arc. Anyway, so issue 5. Basically, there's a bad dude called Toyo Harada. He wants to recruit all these psiots, and one of the psiots is Peter. Peter Stanchek, and Peter is a massively powerful psiot. So anyway, Toyo wants to recruit him and kind of have him under his wing, under the guise of a benevolent organisation. But he's actually quite brutal, Harada. So anyway, Peter's a bit of a rebel. He's just found his powers, and issue 5 culminates in him taking on Toyo and his marshals, I guess, and one of them being Livewire, and she's, like, nowadays you see she's actually got her own title. She's a lot more on the side of good. Back in the day, here in 2012, she was very much like a marshal of Toyo Harada. And you have other like Stronghold and Ion, very powerful psiots, and Peter takes on all of them. And you think he wins, he does, but he actually gets the crap beaten out of him by Toyo. So there was a lot of exploding buildings, a lot of telekinetic power, a lot of violence in this as well. And I don't know, I just love the art. It's the introduction also. The early introduction of Faith. She's one of the big characters in Valiant as well. She ends up getting her own series and she's quite popular. Her psiot powers get activated by Peter. But yeah, this is just an awesome... Look, again, I keep on saying I love my action scenes. This is an awesome show of power from Peter and from Toyo Harada and from the other psiots. But yeah, it was action-packed and it's kind of came to a head in this.
Yeah, this is the end of the first trade.
Yep.
So, and yeah, well, I guess for all those people listening, Valiant was probably one of the most important things for me, getting to know Rebecca and Ray. Like, we spoke in a Serious Issues group, in a group chat. The first time I ever spoke to them individually, I added them to a group to ask them a question about the Valiant, the Kent Lemire run. And from there, I don't know, we just kept talking, and a year later we started a podcast together. So, Valiant was pretty influential. I love it. I mean, this is the very start. This was the very first book of the new line launched by Dinesh and Dysart. And
yes, Yeah.
The Bloodshot Rider, whose last name I can't even begin to pronounce.
Oh, yeah, he's a Polish surname.
Duane,
Yeah.
Also great, but I
yeah.
love the Harbinger run. You know, it's kind of like its own sort of X-Men, but a lot more, very different. But you know, it's kind of spun off from that, very morally grey. Like Peter himself is a douchebag who does some pretty unforgivable things, and Harada is also a terrible person. But even over the run, you come to like him. Like we're getting the life and death of Toya Harada.
Yes.
A couple of weeks. So excited for that book because that character's really interesting now. You know, it's such an interesting thing, and all these characters are so morally grey and just so interesting and brilliant, and the action's awesome, which is something this issue shows.
Yeah.
Bloody and explosive.
Oh, no, absolutely. Like, Harada is such a complex character, and it's easy to generalise him and make a similarity between him and, say, Magneto, as an anti-hero. But there are some absolutely abysmal things Harada does, but at the same time, there's a certain a logic to it, and sometimes there are instances where you do kind of lean towards him. So he's just written very well. Like he's a very, and he's ultra powerful as well. He's kind of like Peter's level of power, probably even more. So it's quite interesting. I don't know. It's just so well written, and it goes that step further than the X-Men. Like as you're saying, Connor, Peter in the I was about to pick the first issue, like issue 1 of this, but I didn't want to fall into the trap of just picking the issue 1s of runs. I wanted to pick something, that was more than just an introductory issue. And in the first issue, we see Peter. He literally uses his power to, let's not beat around the bush, to basically take advantage sexually of this girl against her will. And that's such a massively immoral so immoral action to take, and this is our protagonist, so you just kind of always left with mixed feelings for who's meant to be a protagonist, who's meant to be an antagonist in this. And it's just brilliant. And there's the right mix of action. The art and colours are just brilliant. But yeah, Chad, I don't know, if you haven't read Valiant, not wanting to sound like I'm, on a commission from them. But yeah, definitely worth checking out.
Excuse me, Ray. I've actually been reading Shadow Man, so...
Oh yeah, Shadow Man.
The new one?
What was that?
Was that the new one?
I started reading at the very, very beginning.
Oh, you mean classic Shadow Man from the early Valiant? Oh, wow.
Back in the bayou.
Wow, nice. Well, Shadow Man's another big one as well. And again, I know I sound like a broken record, but again, he could have easily been in the Andy Diggle run currently now. Connor, I think, did you say you dropped it, or you're still collecting it? Or
Yeah, I think it was just a busy period. I should go back and check it out. I heard it was very good.
Oh, man, it is really, really good. And the 2012 onwards as well, Shadow Man, Peter Milligan, I think he writes it. Really, really good. I like it. It gets a bit flat towards the middle and the end, but it's really good. Yeah, sorry, Chad. Shadow Man. I should have known that you would have picked up. You had good taste, of course. So, but if anything, Chad, Harbingers as well. I don't know. Do you like X-Men stuff? Do you like that team sort of dynamic? Or
honestly, when it comes down to the X-Men dynamics for the team builds, I'm more towards just Wolverine and one other person, just Wolverine and some huge badass character. Because the reality is he's not a very powerful mutant. He has one trick.
Yeah.
He does it really well.
Yeah.
That's it. So he's adaptable. He's a great assassin because you can't put him down.
Yeah. Yeah, no, true.
That's it.
Okay, so the appeal of having disparate characters with disparate powers is not there's no attraction there, no appeal.
I mean, I like Loki and all, but desperation is just kind of desperate at times.
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I mean, like, I totally understand where you come from as well. As I said, I love Wolverine. Yeah, X-Men's good, but yeah, Harbinger for me is just is different. It's on a different kind of. It's gone down a different road. Yeah, and it's definitely worth checking out. So. The Harbinger run all the way on from 2012 onwards gets pretty good as well. It culminates in, I think, Harbinger Renegades. There's that massive fallout with Hardcore. So Hardcore are kind of like the... how would you describe them, Connor, if there was a Marvel or DC equivalent? They're kind of like...
Ooh.
They're kind of like the government...
Yeah, they're kind of like... They're almost kind of like a Shield or something?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say. Probably the ground team for Shield. But the thing with them...
Or like when kind of... I suppose a better comparison would be like when Thunderbolt Ross assembles a team to take down like the Hulk or someone.
Yeah. That's a lot more appropriate. But think of that plus think of the ragtag team. Well, think of the team in Aliens. Like, they're a strong unit and they all have nicknames. Except for he is Gunslinger. Gunslinger's the leader. But yeah, so anyway, we're kind of going off on a tangent there. But the Harbinger's really good. Really enjoy it. And happy to take this one onto the Isla Ra with me.
And from here it just spins off in everything: Harbinger, Omega, Renegade, Imperium.
Yes, that's right.
All that good stuff.
Yeah.
I think we've given Valiant plenty of shouts out here because they're the best.
They're good. So those are the numbers 3 and 4 of the list.
Now, Ray, we're going to get a couple of serious ones here. Then I've put in a request with KHONSHU. I'm going to take us somewhere not very nice.
Yo.
Hi, this is Dave.
And I'm Stu, and we're from the Signal of Doom.
We're proud members of the Collective, and you're listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast.
Ah, yes. Feel that hot outback sun. We're in the middle of nowhere.
Of course.
Sitting on some rocks. It's hot, windy, perfect place to talk about 2 of your favourite comics.
Yeah. Great. So yeah, I can see a crucifix there in the distance there, Connor. I hope none of us have any plans for that. Chad, how are you? Welcome to Australia, by the way. Glad to have you here with us.
Don't mind the snake over there.
Don't mind the snake. Don't mind the funnel web spiders. Enjoy the kangaroos.
Maybe I should have worn my pea coat here.
So obviously we'll get to why we are in the Outback. No spoilers. It's for the Uncanny X-Men issue. But for number 2, I picked Daredevil 67 for the reasons that I mentioned before, like Brian Michael Bendis' run in Daredevil. As much as we bag him out these days, as much as we use terms such as like, it was a little too Bendis-y, that issue, or there's a reason why he's scrutinized so much, is because he has reached these massive heights. Ultimate Spider-Man, I guess, was one of them, Avengers, but his Daredevil run for me, and this was even before the Netflix Daredevil, just epitomized street levelness. So it was just really pared back. There was no more. Look, I'm a big fan as well as of David Fincher's art of that kind of over muscled, really superhero typey stuff. With Alex Maleev, it's all kind of very kind of realistic. They're not all kind of rippling and disproportioned like that Liefeld picture of Captain America. That they look like real people, and the dialogue is real, and it isn't too Bendisy, if I can say that. There is a lot of dialogue, but a lot of it is well used, and it's valuable to the story. So so I chose this one, 67. I again literally could have chosen many of the Bendis runs. I was thinking of the one with Typhoid Mary. That was a ripper of a one. There's another one where Kingpin is attacked and he's stabbed multiple times by his lieutenants or something who want to usurp his power. There's a lot of these sorts of stories which is really good. I picked the one with Bont. I can't remember his name. It could be Frank Bont. He's a criminal who used to work in his youth in the streets of Hell's Kitchen, and he gets undone by kind of Daredevil. So he kind of grows in bitterness over the years, and he gets out of prison, and his idea is to gain revenge on Daredevil. So in this issue, he has captured Matt Murdock and Daredevil. He's used Gladiator, Melvin Potter, as his kind of hitman, and we get a bit of a snippet into his past life, Bont's past life, I mean, and he's running...
Alexander Bont.
Alexander Bont, okay. Frank Bont, I think I know where that is. He's from The Walking Dead. I think he's one of the showrunners. That's what I was thinking of. Yeah, Alexander Bont, okay. But yeah, this is a cracking issue for art as well as dialogue. So anyway, yeah. So basically, it's basically got Daredevil captive. It goes back into Bont's run-in with Matt Murdock. At first, Bont wants to engage Murdock for his services, his legal services, and this is very akin to the Netflix series. It reminded me of it. Foggy and Matt, they turn him down. So if you remember in the Netflix series, they turned down Weasley? Kingpin's second... Wesley, sorry. So I'm thinking of Harry Potter. They're not Weasley, Wesley. Sorry, that's it. In the Netflix series, he turns him down. And this reminded me of that. Anyway, so Bont gets the shits with him. So he hates Matt Murdock. He hates Daredevil. But yeah, it was a really good thing. What I would be keen to know, kind of with yourself, would be the art. I'm pretty sure you would have appreciated the art, yeah?
I still love Alex Maleev to this day. He's still putting out high quality work.
Yeah.
Infamous Iron Man, doing some Bendis's... I forget which one he's doing as part of his Jinx World books, but one of those.
Yeah.
He's just incredible. I think, this is my favourite Daredevil. Knocks Frank Miller's out of the park for me. This and Brubaker's one of my favourites. You know, Bendis's Daredevil, O'Neill's The Question are like two of the best street-level comics of all time. And they're just timeless. I just love them so much. And Alex Maleev's art, just amazing. Yeah.
Look, you get a lot of angry Daredevil fans from what you said there, Conor, about Frank Miller. But no, seriously, I would stand by you as well. I think Bendis and Brubaker's run is absolutely phenomenal. Like I said, I'm just doing a reread now, and I'm just it still holds well. I'm still floored by what I'm reading and looking at. And anyway, the art for this is, I've really got to point this out. I mean, the beauty of this, again, why I chose it, as well as not only the great story, but the art here from Maleev. He employs like 3 different styles here in one thing. Like, we've seen in the Moon Knight runs, and we've discussed at length during Lemire's run, how they used 3 different artists. Oh my God, my James Stocco, I'm blanking.
Wilfredo Torres,
Francesco Francavilla.
That's the one.
And Greg Smallwood. So he uses all of them, and it worked really well. Over here, I believe he does all three of them. And so when you have flashbacks of when Bont is younger, you get, and it's to the colorist as well, you get that kind of old style comic look. Because back in the day, I don't know how timelines work here, Connor, because back in the day, Bont is fighting Daredevil, who's in the yellow and red and brown costume. And Bont is considerably aged since then, yet Daredevil is still kind of the same age. So I don't know how that works. Yeah. But anyway, because Bont's in his 90s, right, in the present day. And, anyway. Actually, I take that all back. Anyway, and there's a third style as well, which goes even further when Bont is very young, and it's a black and white style comic, and slightly different art from Malieve. Very, very cool stuff. I don't think it's shown here. Oh, it is actually shown here in this issue. But we see Bont. He actually is responsible for killing a superhero by the name of the Defender. So he has a bit of a reputation. He's actually... There's this thing in the underworld where they're all kind of getting shits with costumed, idiots running around and disrupting their organisation. Bont actually builds a reputation by shooting the Defender and killing him. And so, beautiful art. Just black and white. It's very stark to show the timeline of when he was very young.
Feels proper Godfather and Goodfellas as well in that style and the language as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So really good. I even say with Bendis' dialogue, it's not. He doesn't overplay it. I don't believe at all. And he really just fleshes out the character of Bont. But again, maybe it's this thing I have with seeing superheroes very vulnerable, as we'll see with Wolverine later on. But Daredevil, he's tied to a chair. He's just getting the crap beaten out of him by Gladiator, and he's almost killed at the end. But it's one of those, to me, it's a slight trope where the villain, i.e. Bont, says, no, don't kill him yet. He hasn't suffered enough. So he wants to take Daredevil through the ringer. So typical Daredevil, he you see it on the TV show. He gets put through the worst, but he manages to kind of get through in the end. So Chad, have you read a lot of the Bendis stuff?
Honestly, I've only ever read his work for Spider-Man.
Oh, okay, and that's really good though as well. Do you rate that? Yeah.
Yeah, he does amazing work.
Okay.
I'm biased, but the little bit I did read of his Moon Knight run, I'm victim of that opinion.
Yeah. No, fair enough. No, exactly. Look, if Ultimate Spider-Man is anything like... Because I haven't read it. I know Connor has.
Crazy stuff.
I know. I've got to get through it. But if it is anything like the Daredevil run, then I'm already sold. Because this is comic book writing and art just at the highest form for me. So, I had to put this in at number 2. And unfortunately bumped Mooney off the top 2. But it's just, Daredevil is just such a awesome figure. So, really, really enjoyed it.
Guess we're getting to the big one then. We haven't got anything else to say?
No, I think that's about. I think that's about it. Other than the only takeaway, I don't know. I can't remember if it's all from this issue, but as I mentioned, having watched Daredevil on Netflix as well, they take a lot from the Bendis run. Even the look of Melvin Potter, and he's very much, so close to what you see on the TV show. So so that's got to be testament to something. Bendis is doing well. He's got his Jessica Jones up there as well. What a thrill to see you kind of the stuff that you write actually translated on TV. But yeah, anyway, so the last one is Uncanny X-Men 251. I'm just going to pull this up now. Yeah, and like I said, it's enough to work as a one shot. But I'll give a bit of background before actually getting into this actual story. So, what has happened is that the X-Men are the world believes that they're dead, and there's this thing called a Siege Perilous, which is an awesome tool. Anyway.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So I think they get it from Roma. She's like a cosmic being, and she gives it to the X-Men to use if they want. And basically, it kind of wipes the slate, and they kind of disappear, but they kind of reincarnated into something else. So the X-Men like kind of go through that. Some of the X-Men quit, like Longshot, he's in the X-Men, he quits. Storm is actually killed by Havoc just recently. Yeah, so she gets shot down and killed. I don't know, I can't remember the details, but she ends up through the Siege Perilous as well. And actually she turns up as a young child in Cairo again. Oh no, in New Orleans again. And she meets up with Gambit, and that ends up being Gambit's introduction and his first issue. So that's how Gambit and Storm kind of, or how Gambit is introduced into the X-Men. A big figure back then. But anyway, so all the X-Men are dead. They're based in, they were based in the Outback in Australia, where we are now. And Wolverine, he's kind of, typical on and off. But he gets ambushed by the Reavers. And we're seeing this issue, it actually recaps it a little here. He gets ambushed by them and he gets tortured by them for all the atrocities that he's done to them. But there's a running thread here where he's absolutely tortured beyond belief by the Reavers. And for me, getting into comics, the Reavers were the first big, really scary kind of villains. It's funny now because you hardly see them, right? They pop up here and there. But they were utterly... they had Wolverine at 6s and 7s, really. And he was, near death a lot of the time. And they just kept on hammering him. So this issue, 251, you see him... They've got him on the crucifix. And he's in the middle of the desert, the Outback, under the baking sun. And, basically, beautiful art by Mark Silvestri. Donald Pierce, the leader of the Reavers, he comes up and he taunts Wolverine, and it's just his inner monologue by Logan, which I love. There's a little bit of mongrel in him still, even though he's at the point of exhaustion and death. He's still defying him, and so he manages to piss off the Reavers, and off they go. They leave him to bake in the sun, but Wolverine's got a little bit of a smirk towards the end anyway, and he's really flippant about everything. There's one bit where they just leave him and he's really totally exhausted, and he just says, looks like it's going to be a long day, and he's just facing the hot sun the whole so even in the face of death and utter pain, he's just pretty blasé about it. Anyway, so the Reavers go, they infiltrate the base of where the X-Men were, and in there you see a young Jubilee. And she's kind of you don't know too much about her at this stage. She's kind of a runaway or something, but she's been squatting in this place when the X-Men have been away. So anyway, so she gets surprised when the Reavers are there. She sees Wolverine on the crucifix, and I guess she wonders, who the hell this guy is, what's going on. At the same time, Wolverine's going through his fever dream, which is the title of the issue. So you see all really harks back to this era. You see Gateway, awesome Aboriginal mutant from the Outback. He's a teleporter. So Loony listeners there who read a lot of comics, Manifold now is Eden. He's a massive teleporter as well. I think a lot more powerful than Gateway, but he's also Indigenous and Australian. Gateway was the first before him. I believe Gateway's dead. I think they killed him. Yeah, I don't know. Not in this issue, but anyway. So the X-Men are Rogue, Psylocke when she was Elizabeth Braddock English version. You have Longshot. Yeah. So this was before the how everyone knows Psylocke as the Japanese assassin. She was very much the sister of Captain Britain. And she wore almost like knight armor as well, but she was a telepath. Not a very powerful telepath, but she was one. Longshot from Mojo World. You got Dazzler, Storm, Colossus, of course, awesome, and Havoc. So anyway, Wolverine is having a fever dream about them. It kind of recaps what happens to all the X-Men kind of in his dream. He has a few hallucinations of like a cyborg Psylocke, because it's almost Lady Deathstrike, and she's with the REY'S. She cuts herself open, reveals to be Sabretooth. Again, he's going through hallucinations, and he's talking to Sabretooth. It recounts the past, him basically in a pub, and the REY'S ambush him. And there's just too many of them, and they take him, and that's when they drag him onto the crucifix and start torturing him. He again sees very prominent figures of his past, like Ogun, and of course Kitty Pryde. Then he goes up with her, almost like in an astral or spiritual journey. He goes up with her to the top of the ridge, where she shows him basically the last moments of the X-Men, and that's them going through the Siege Perilous at the hands of Psylocke, actually. So anyway, so he kind of sees all that. Kitty Pryde turns into the Brood Queen of all things, and he wakes up from his fever dream. And then it's returned. It's nightfall. The REY'S come back to torture Wolverine even further. They drive stakes in him through his arms and his legs. And there's a big thunderstorm happening. Again, he hallucinates. Thinks he sees Storm, and he wonders why he sees Storm as a young girl, and that's a bit of a tease that later on Storm will turn out on the other side of the Siege Perilous as a young girl. He sees the loves of his life, Jean Grey, Mariko, sorry, I almost forgot her name, and Carol Danvers as a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent. I forgot that she had a bit of a thing with Wolverine. Anyway, the REY'S are kind of inside, just wait. The REY'S they don't like the rain, so they're just inside waiting for the rain to finish before they can torture Wolverine more. Then there's an awesome moment here where Wolverine, he finally lets out a shout because no one's around. The thunder will cover his screams, and he just tries to rip himself off the crucifix. So one by one, he kind of unnails himself from the crucifix just through sheer strength. Jubilee's watching. She's in awe. And he manages to do that, and he stumbles down. Jubilee's wondering, shouldn't I help him? But Wolverine actually knows that she's there, and he says, are you going to help me or not? And so that's where it ends. It was I don't know. It's a really fun issue. I think it was really just well written and self-contained. And yeah, I don't know. Having Wolverine so vulnerable, but yet showing so much fight for me is what really appealed to me.
Yeah, going through this one, I'm a big Wolverine fan. This was obviously his biggest. This is his biggest time, I guess. That.
Yep.
Late 80s, early 90s, or 90s, I guess in general. Yeah, this was great. I just love an introspective issue like this. And this going through all his enemies and allies. You're seeing Kitty, seeing Sabretooth, seeing Mariko, whose story... it's one of my favourite issues of the Uncanny X-Men with... was it Ogun?
Ogun, yeah.
Ogun, yeah. Whatever that issue is. It's iconic. It's a great cover, but I cannot remember it. But yeah, no. I love this issue. I think you're right. It's just such, as I was saying to Ray before, this issue really holds up even now. It's obviously like an 80s, 90s comic, but it doesn't have any needless exposition. It's just great writing, great understanding of Wolverine and his primal rage and
I mean, there's a little bit of a tease with the Siege Perilous that if you just come into this one issue, there's enough there to actually explain what it is, but it kind of leaves it hanging up there in the air. So it kind of does, as any good comic would do, would lead you towards wanting to read more. But other than that, yeah, I think it's pretty well self-contained. I think Claremont really does capture. I don't know. He just captures the different characters quite well. There's enough that he actually even fleshes out the REY'S, and enough as well that they're not just your one-dimensional, just bad villains because they're evil. There's a little banter between, I think it's Reese and Cole, one of the REY'S, when they're stalking through the home base of the X-Men. So they're like, they've got a sense of humour too, and they're, for want of a better word, they're normal as well. But yeah,
normal Reavers.
Yeah, normal Reavers. Yeah, they're normal as far as Reavers go. But yeah, I think Claremont does a really good job in voicing Wolverine, Donald Pierce, Jubilee. He even gives some of the lesser known Reavers a bit of time to shine as well. And as you say, it just recaps a lot of Wolverine's. And look, I'm just looking at images here of Sabretooth back then. Yeah, this is back when Sabretooth was bad. This was when he was a really great antagonist to Wolverine. Like, nothing against him now that he's doing good, but I love this kind of classic rivalry that they have. And Mark Silvestri is just art. Look, I love the way he draws Wolverine. There's a couple of facial shots here that really kind of stuck with me. Connor, I'm just flicking when he's in the rain, and he's trying to unnail himself. There's that gritty, determined look. A very animalistic look of Wolverine in the rain, perfectly captured. He says, I want to scream, that's good, I give all the voice I got left. Who's to hear through all the thunder? Pain's a goad, makes me mad, makes me crazy. And he uses that anger to go. Even at the very beginning as well, where he looks at Donald Pierce and goes, want to bet? Where Donald Pierce has been taunting him. Just great art from Silvestri. So, really.
So,
yeah.
No, sorry. I'll let you finish. I was about to go on to it.
No, okay. I'm just about to say, and Wolverine during this time, again, I've got to draw back to Peter David. Peter David wrote a lot of the early solo Wolverine title around this time, really fleshed him out. Again, that was a very close choice for me. There was the Gena Stone, I think, affair. I think it was a 7-parter. Very well grounded, really strange art in it, but that was a really good one as well. So I like these kind of little, little character moments for Wolverine, and I thought 251 was really good. Also, just quickly to let you know as well, leading up for this, 252, 253. And then 254, we see a new team, and that's when they kind of get, you know how that blue and gold uniform, Connor, in the X-Men.
Yeah.
I think that is where they kind of. It wasn't actually the Jim Lee era in the 90s. There was actually this issue here, which is 254, that they introduced the blue and gold uniform. So that's only a few issues later, and then you have the X-Men team of, I think, Moira, Polaris, Forge, I think that's Siren, Legion, and Banshee. And it looks like, I think it's not Strong Guy, there's another guy there. But anyway, so 251 springboards into a great era of X-Men tales. So it was what can I say? Really good.
Yeah, Chad. What I wanted to bring up was this. This is in the Outback era. A very famous time. But my reading of X-Men I finished up just before the Outback run started with Claremont, and I've just never come back to it. Are you at all familiar with this era?
At this point in time, I wasn't really reading Marvel. I was actually reading Darkness.
Yeah.
Another Mark Silvestri.
Oh, okay, right.
There you go.
What publisher was that?
That was, I think that was Image.
Yeah,
Okay.
was that like Skybound to begin with, or was it just eventually put under Skybound?
I thought Skybound is Cho.
Oh, maybe.
Oh,
Yeah, Skybound's like a part of Image.
Okay.
Can't remember.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Mark Silvestri's art is really good. I don't know how his art holds up like currently. Is Darkness still going on, Chad, or?
It's kind of off and on. It's no longer like a title in itself, but there's been like another Witchblade incarnation, and that ran for a while with Stefan Sejic, and he was doing a great job with it, but they did another reboot on it, and it didn't do too hot.
Ah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, for me, Silvestri is pretty much the Uncanny X-Men run, and a bit of Cyberforce as well. I collected Cyberforce for Image when he moved over there. I know he's done Incredible Hulk, I think during the 2000s, but I haven't checked it out. So, anyway, for nostalgia's sake, he and Dan Green on inks and Mark Silvestri on pencils. I think they were a bomb. They were a great team, similar to how Jim Lee and Scott Williams were in the 90s. They were top tier. But yeah.
All right. Well, any cover on this trip down memory lane?
Yeah, I gotta. Thanks, Connor. It's been really fun to chat about these issues. It was a nice exercise to go through and try to find trying to find the top 4 issues. It's such a hard thing, but there are just so many great issues out there. I mean, I urge anyone who hasn't picked up these issues, at least give it a go. I mean, I think they're all, apart from the Harbinger one, they're all available. They should be on Marvel Unlimited. I'm not sure if the Mark Spector one is.
Sadly not, I don't think.
Oh, okay. Well, he's just going to have to take my word for it then. No, but definitely the Uncanny X-Men, for sure. And if you haven't read, for those who haven't read Daredevil by Bendis, do yourself a favour. And I should read the Ultimate Spider-Man. Connor, I should do that.
Bloody well should.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, I think we've toasted you up well enough in this hot sun. Sorry about putting you through that as your first trip over here, Chad, but KHONSHU, take us back to the mansion. All right, I guess it's been a trip down memory lane for us all. We were put Ray in the hot seat. This is actually thanks to Rick Ball special.
Yeah.
You know, Loony been shouty, put Ray up to it, called him out. Ray couldn't back down. So thanks to Rick Ball, you've had this in-depth look at Ray.
Yeah, thanks, Rick Ball. Yeah, and I really appreciate it, Rick, for suggesting it. Like I said, your issue 13 of Moon Knight, that was, I would have picked that as well. That was a really top one. It's been a lot of fun. I hope, I'd like to know your thoughts on these issues that I've chosen, Rick Ball, so, and others out there, so yeah, please drop us a line.
Awesome. Well, is there anything else you want to add before I wrap us up and send us home?
No. How about yourself, Chad? Any final little recommendations or any thoughts?
Or throw it to you first, Chad.
Not exactly. I'm kind of off guard here because the time displacement.
Yep, heat stroke.
Yeah, heat stroke. That's what it was. Too much coffee, not enough water.
Yeah, God. Yeah.
That's kind of on us. I just want to say as well, read Pluto by Naoki Urasawa.
Yeah, actually,
get on that.
I will. I definitely will. I'm going to look it up on Wiki now, and as always, we'll try to corral all these top suggestions from everyone and put them in the show notes for Loonies to check out.
Yeah. So thanks for coming in, everyone. Thanks, Ray, for hopping in the hot seat. We love these Isla Ra's. I think they were a great idea from Ray that I think was one of the biggest hits of last year. Going strong into this year with Ray, so...
and can I say then that Connor and Chad, we've got to look to you guys for your Isla Ra's next. It'll be very interesting to hear. Like Chad, you've raised a couple of really like obscure titles that would be really keen to learn more about. I'm sure you've got a lot more in your swag there, and Connor as well. Man, it'd be really really interesting to get your take, because I know your net is vast, and it'll be interesting to see you whittle it down to 4.
Oh, well, definitely gonna have to work on it while we're waiting. And I say we do Chad next, so I can hide a bit longer.
Yeah. I vote Chad next as well.
Man, that's just crazy.
All right. Well, I think we're covering nicely from the sun in Grant Mansion, but we might send us on home. So, Ray, where can they find us? Where can they find you after getting so personal and friendly with you?
Loonies. Look, if you made sense of all my rants there, and if you've got any thoughts on the show and the issues covered, please drop us a line on email at itkmoonnight at gmail.com. We also have a blog site, intothenightpodcast.wordpress.com. That's where all our newsletters and our show notes and our summaries are at. You can also contact us through there as well. We are on Facebook. We've got a page, facebook.com/itkmoonnight. And we have a utterly fantastic group, a really good bunch of loonies. Thank you so much, loonies, everyone who is involved. That's facebook.com/groups/itkmoonnight. It's over there that you'll see the likes of Connor and Chad as well. On Twitter, easy handle to remember, at itkmoonnight as well. So just send us thoughts there. You'll be able to, you'll be able to get a response from that. Also on Instagram, Tumblr, YouTube, you just got to search for Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast. We'll be there. Also, iTunes ratings. Look, if you like what you heard tonight, or if you like what you've heard in our other segments, remember that we cover different things with the phases of the moon. You can drop us an iTunes rating, and that would really help us kind of reach out to other loonies out there who may not know about this podcast. Almost every other day we do get member requests into our group, so it's great to see that people are finding their way towards us and hopefully listening to our podcast as well. So an iTunes rating would be absolutely awesome. And finally, just we're on most of all the podcast catchers you can think of, hopefully. The big ones like Stitcher, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, you name it. We should be there. Just search for us. So that's where you can find us. Yeah, please drop us a line. That'd be good. And like I said, maybe we should post up that thing of comic characters with music. I'd really be keen to hear what people would associate music with each comic book character.
And I got a few more announcements I'll hopefully drop in this week. So thanks everyone for stopping by. We hope to see you there.
Yeah, and I guess as we always say, may KHONSHU watch over the denizens of the night.
Goodbye.
Bye.
See ya.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.